In today's tutorial, you'll learn how to set up your own CSGO server. So this is a Counter-Strike server. This is a completely free method of setting up a CSGO server. I just did this today. So if you follow this method, you'll get exactly the setup that I've created here. Now this method is free forever as well. So if all this sounds interesting, then keep watching. Okay, now this tutorial is possible by using Oracle Cloud's free tier. They actually give us access to some free virtual machines to use as our server. So they give us up to 2 AMD machines and 4 Ampere machines as well. So we're going to put the Linux Game Server Manager on here with the Counter-Strike server, and we're going to just run a few commands and install this and get it running. So I'll make it as simple as possible to follow along. You can head over to my blog on ideas.com.au. I'll put the link in the description. All the commands that I use during the tutorial, you can just copy and paste them in as you go, and you'll get a free server running by the end of this tutorial. So good luck and have fun. Just head over to oracle.com/cloud/free, click start for free, sign up, and then head over to your dashboard and we can go ahead and build this thing. Once we're all signed up and logged in, you'll notice that we are on our dashboard under the Get Started tab here. It says you are using a free tier account up the top with this purple banner. So everything we do during this tutorial is going to be completely free as long as you got that free tier account banner here. You actually have to intentionally upgrade to a paid account to ever get a bill. So you can be pretty well assured that everything is going to be free here. All we have to do to get started on this tutorial is scroll down and we're going to create a VM instance here. So the server we're going to be creating today is a Counter-Strike server, but there's obviously lots of other things you can use your free server to do, such as web development or even game development if you have the skills. So now's probably a great time to talk about our sponsor today, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes. Now, I joined Skillshare to improve my skills in web development and my skills in Linux server administration. One of the first classes I joined was one called Complete Linux Training Course to Get Your Dream IT Job by Imran Afzal. Now, this has been great, very useful in terms of learning Linux server administration. We're actually going to use some of the commands from this class today. So crontab, for example, is what we're going to use to keep our Counter-Strike server automatically updated. I really think joining Skillshare is going to help me improve my web development projects and also create much better YouTube videos to help you guys as well. So I've actually got a link in the description. So the first 1,000 people who use my link get a 1-month free trial at Skillshare as well. So check that out if you're interested. But let's head over and get back to our Counter-Strike setup. Let's just name this one CSGO tutorial, and we're going to change our image and shape here. So let's just click change image here. And now for our operating system, let's go with a minimal install of Ubuntu. So let's go with 2004 minimal here. Looks all good. And we can leave this one as it is. The AMD standard micro, always free eligible. That gives us 1 GB of memory and 1 core Oracle CPU. Next part, we need to add an SSH key. So I'm using Windows here. I'm going to paste a public key. The one I like to use for SSH in Windows is putty, putty.org. You can get that for free, so just head over to putty.org, download that one. Now, Putty comes with all these apps. The one we're going to use to generate our key is called PuttyGen, so we're going to run that one. Click Generate here and just wiggle the mouse in that gray area until it generates a key. So this just generates random data for our SSH key. So this SSH key looks like it's ready. Now we just want to save these keys, so I'll save the public one. I'll just call that CSGO pub. And the private one, you can actually add a password if you want, but if it's a private computer, you don't need to. I'll just call it CSGO. There we go. And then we want to copy this key. So let's just highlight all this. I'm just going to highlight all that and copy it. Make sure you've highlighted all that key there correctly and paste it into that box there. All right, so that looks all good. And now we can go ahead and click Create. So this is going to be orange. It's going to say provisioning. So we do need to wait a few minutes here before this turns green. So just be patient there. When it's ready, our IP address is going to show up here as well. So let's just wait and I'll skip ahead to that point. All right. So after about a minute, that turns green. It says running and we've got our public IP address here. Let's click copy. So now we're going to connect to our server using Putty. So let's load up Putty here. We are going to put in our IP address under hostname up here. So paste in that IP address. That was the one we just copied from there. And we're going to put Ubuntu as our user at the front here. So Ubuntu and then the @ symbol, so Ubuntu @ our IP address. I'm going to save this as CSGO tutorial and just click save there. And then we go to SSH and expand that one. Under auth is where we browse for the key that we created using PuTTY earlier. So that's our CSGO private key there. So that looks all good. Scroll back up to the top where it says session and we'll save that in. So that's all saved. We can go back to CSGO tutorial and connect to this anytime we want now. So let's hit open and hit accept there. All right, so I just increased the font size for this video, but all we want to do is put in a few commands here. So I'm going to type sudo su dash to change over to super user. Now, don't worry if you've never used one of these terminals before. I'm going to put all the commands that I use over on my blog. So just check the description for a link to my IdeaSpot blog, and you can just copy and paste everything I do today into your terminal. So now we're operating as sudo, so that looks all good. What we want to do is install the dependencies for this server. So if we head over to our Linux server manager page here, we want to do the dependencies. And the dependencies we're using for Ubuntu 2004 are these ones here. So we're going to copy that whole line here. Just hit copy there. All good. And back on our terminal, we just right click to paste that in there and press enter. And this will take a few minutes to install all these dependencies. So just be patient while this stuff installs. I'll come back when this is all done. During the install of these, you may get prompted to say yes or no. So obviously we just say yes there, press enter, and just let it keep running. And next you'll get hit with this license agreement here. So all you have to do here is just press enter a few times as you scroll through that license agreement. So, and then you'll get to the point here at the bottom where it says decline or accept. So make sure you press number 2 for I agree and enter. And now it'll keep ticking along here and we'll just wait for that to hit 100. Awesome. So all those dependencies are installed. There's a couple other little things I like to install as well at this point. So just a text editor and cron. So I'm going to install nano and cron here. So I'll just paste that command in. Again, that's on my blog. You can just paste that in with right click. So nano is just a text editor and cron is enabling us to install automatic updates because Counter-Strike, the server updates itself very frequently and you want to make sure you're on the latest version of the server. Otherwise, most people can't connect if your server's not up to date. So that looks like it's all good. Now we want to allow the port that Counter-Strike uses. So I'm going to paste in a couple of commands here to allow these on our IP tables. So I'll just paste that one in there and another command for our IP tables. I'm just going to paste that in. I'm going to share these commands obviously. So, but the port 27015 is what Counter-Strike uses. So that's all we're doing, putting that in there. And then we're going to save that in with netfilter persistent save and press enter. So that looks like it's all good. All right, so next thing we're going to do is make a user called CSGO server. So I'm going to right click that in here, add user CSGO server is what I just did. And it's going to prompt us for a new password. So put in a nice strong password here and repeat that password. All I'm doing there is just right clicking from Notepad and pasting it in. And so we can fill in our details here, or you can just skip through this. There's no need to put any details in there. That looks all good. Okay, now I'm going to give sudo access to the CSGO server with this command, sudo user mod, sudo CSGO server. So let's go and put that in there. So again, all I'm doing is just, I've got all the commands on my blog or in my Notepad in this case, I'm just copying and then right click pasting the stuff in here and pressing enter. So really straightforward process. Now let's change over to the CSGO server user. So we put that in there. There we go. CSGO server is our new user. All right, so now we have to do the installer. So that's basically what I just did. Now we download the Linux script to install the server. Cool, so paste that one in, press enter. All right, now we're ready to run the installer, but before we do that, we'll need a token for our server, so a Steam token. So I'm going to head over to Steam Community Dev Manage Game Servers here. So then all we do is we'll need to log into Steam here, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so once we are logged in here, so I'm logged in as Alex, but log into your own Steam account, obviously, and we're going to put 730 in here for CSGO, and we're going to just describe this as CSGO tutorial. But you can name this anything you want, and then click create. All right, so that's going to give us a token. We can go ahead and copy that one. We're going to keep that safe. We're going to use that one later. But back on our terminal now, we are ready to run this CSGO install. So let's run that command there and press enter. After a few seconds, I got prompted with the server directory here. We press enter for yes and let it keep ticking away. This part here is a little bit frustrating because it does look like it's frozen, but it actually hasn't. So just be patient while this does its thing. Installing the CSGO server, this is probably the longest part of this process here. All right, so after about a minute, we can see we've got some progress here. It'll look something like this. Now, this number here is actually a percentage. So that means I'm 1% installed. So this will take, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 minutes to actually install. So what we can do while we're waiting for this is actually go back to our instances on Oracle. We can set up our virtual cloud network. So click your virtual cloud network there and go through to the subnet and then click our default security list. Okay, so our default security list, it's going to look something like this. We're going to add a couple of ports here for Counter-Strike. So we're going to click add ingress rule. The port we're going to be using is 27015 for Counter-Strike. We're going to do TCP and 0.0.0.0/0. And let's just call this CSGO here. And we press enter or add ingress rule. And then we repeat the same thing. Add another ingress rule. Same deal here, 0.0.0.0/0. So 4 zeros with a /0. We're going to do UDP this time. And our destination port 27015, again, CSGO. And so we'll add that on. And we should have those two there. So 27015 for TCP and UDP described as CSGO. So that looks all good. Let's go back and check how our install is going. All right, so this is still on 33%. So I'm just going to go have a coffee and come back when this is all done. All right, so this looks like it's pretty much done here. That did take about half an hour. Was the install successful? Enter for Y for yes there. And I think this is wrapping up. There we go. Now, this is going to be where we use our Steam token that we created earlier. So let's grab that one. There we go. That was the one we created in our Steam server account management. So I've just copied that one and I'm going to right click to paste that in, press enter. And I think this should wrap up, hopefully. Y for yes, enter there. And awesome, install complete. To start your server, type CSGO server start. So looks all good. So now that we've set this up, back on our Linux game server manager details here, we can look at the basic usage of our server here. So you can start, stop, restart the server with those commands. You can look at your server details with this one here, which is what I'm going to do now. So let's just paste that one in, CSGO server details. This is going to tell us a few things about how this server works. All right, so if we scroll up, we can see we've got the config file in this folder here. We can edit that one. And we can see we've got the Archon password is there. You've got a random password generated. I'll show you how to change that one in a minute. We've got the game type and the game mode, so you can do casual or deathmatch or competitive mode. I'll show you how to do that as well. So let's just go and edit that config file. So to do that, we just type nano, and then we put the link to that config file. So that will use the nano text editor that we installed earlier. Now we can go down here. We can change our Archon password here. So we could change that to whatever we like. I could just change it to say, I'll change mine to IdeaSpot CSGO 765, but you can put whatever you want in there, obviously. The other things we can put in here, the host name. By default, the name of our server is going to be Linux GSM, but I'll call mine IdeaSpot. But again, you can name your server anything you want. There's a couple of other things we can add in here. We can add the game type and the game mode. So I've just put those in, game type 0 and game mode, game_mode 0. So I'll show you how this works. I think 00 is classic casual mode. So if you wanted to say deathmatch, you would change it to game type 1, game mode 2. So I'll just change that as such. So game mode 2, game type 1. But that's basically all we can do here. I mean, there's lots of different commands you can use to customize a server, but those are the basics to get you started. So when you've finished, we click Control X to exit and then press Y for yes, and then press enter. So that's going to save that config file with our new password, new name, and all that stuff. And the last thing I want to do is add some auto updates here. So we're going to use a command called crontab E, and then we can actually put in commands to keep our server automatically updated. So we just scroll down to the bottom of this file here, and I'm going to paste in our crontab commands. So I'm going to copy and paste them in just with the right click there. They'll look like that. You can actually get these from that Linux GSM server. I'll show you where I got those. But anyway, Control X, press Y for yes, and enter, and that will save it there, installing new cron tab. So that looks all good. So these just come from our Linux Game Server Manager docs here, and these are the recommended tasks. So basically, every 5 minutes it monitors the server, every 30 minutes it checks for updates, and it keeps the Linux Game Server Manager updated as well. So that's how those work, and those are the recommended ones. So I'll just put those in to cron. Now we should be all good to actually start the server now. So CSGO server start, let's press enter. And this should start up our Counter-Strike server. There we go. That all looks like it's okay. It looks something like this, but I think we're pretty much good to go now. If we check our server details again, we should see that we've started the server. There we go. Status is started, and we can actually scroll up and it'll show us how we connect here. So the internet IP is this one. This is how we're going to connect in our actual Counter-Strike game. All right, so in the game itself, we go to our settings. What we want to do first is just make sure that your developer console is enabled. Set that to yes. I think that's set to no by default, so make sure that's set. We're going to use that later. Also, when we go to play, we can actually add our server. So community server browser is what we go to here. We can click OK, and we click add a server. We can paste in our IP address on port 27015, and we can add this to our favorites. So there we go. I've got my IdeaSpot server there. That looks all good. And we can go ahead and click connect. Now, sometimes there's a bit of a glitch where that one stays black. It doesn't let you connect. So you might want to just flip from tab to tab. I think that sometimes fixes it. You can see it's black there. If I highlight it, it should be white, and then you click connect. I don't know why. That's just a bit glitchy sometimes, but whatever. We are connecting to our server, so exciting. This is our own server that we're connecting to. So I'll just wait for that. Here we go. Awesome. Awesome. So this looks like it's working just fine. If we press tab, we can see I've got my deathmatch that I selected earlier. The actual server is called IdeaSpot, so that looks all good. And my ping is not great. That's because I'm in Australia and my server is actually over in the west coast of the United States. So my ping is a bit high, but if I was in the west coast of the United States, I'd have quite a good ping. So this looks like it's all running just fine. Now we can press the tilde key. We can bring up our developer console there. So that it's hard to describe. If I press escape, and I can show you again, that's the button on the keyboard. It's usually in the top left corner of your keyboard. You can press that and that will bring up your console. This is where you can enter commands. So let's get back to our game and I'll show you how that works. Okay, so in our console, we can put the icon password in, like archon_password, and then put the password in. Mine's IdeaSpot CSGO 765, but whatever you chose in yours, pop that in. And then you can run other archon commands. Like, for example, if you wanted to restart the game, we could go archon mp_restart game in 3, and that'll restart the game in 3 seconds. So there we can see. Game will restart. So that's how you do the commands. There's obviously lots of commands you can use when you're running a server, but those are the main ones you need. Just basically restart the game, and then the ones we put in the config to set up whether it's deathmatch or competitive or casual, whatever style you like. So you've got the basics to run it. I'm not going to cover every command in Counter-Strike, obviously, but I think you can run your own server pretty easily now. Okay, so that's how you set up a public server. Now, if you want to actually password protect this and have it as a private server, I'll show you how to do that as well. So we want to go to Nano and enter that CSGO server config location again. Back to our config. What we want to do here, you've got one called server password for private servers here. So you can just add a password in here. For example, if I wanted to make one IdeaSpot, I'll just share that with my friends who I want to share the server with, and they have to use IdeaSpot when they connect to the server. But if you just leave it blank with the 2 quotation marks like that, that's going to be blank and anyone can join your server. So up to you if you want to run a public or private. I'll leave that up to you, but that's how you do that part of it. And then again, Control X, Y for yes, and enter to save the config. So that is basically all we need to do. So that pretty much wraps it up. So I've never done anything gaming related on the channel before, so this is the first time. Let me know what you think in the comments about this tutorial. Now, I obviously chose Counter-Strike Source Global Offensive for this tutorial, but this will actually work for a variety of other games. You can run lots of different servers using Linux Game Server Manager. It's really more about which ones you can run on 1 GB of RAM. So I'm not really sure. I think a lot of the older games will run just fine on 1 GB, and Counter-Strike's obviously not too resource intensive, so that works okay. But there's actually 126 games supported on here. So this method can be used on other servers with other games. Just make sure you've got enough memory and processing power to run whichever game you want to run. But the same process is basically follow the instructions in here. So let's just look at Call of Duty 2, for example. Again, it's exactly the same thing. You just install the dependencies, run the install scripts, and check out what the basic usage is to start, stop, look at the server details. So you can run many different kinds of game servers with this method. So I think CSGO is just a popular example. So feel free to try this with other ideas as well. But let me know if you'd like me to cover anything else, or if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. But thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.